Today's guest is Mr. Bernard Swanepoel. If you've been to the Joburg Indaba or PGM's Industry Day, you know the man needs no introduction. With his sharp wit and comic impatience, Bernard turns mining conferences into truth-telling arenas, cutting through corporate spin with a grin. But he's more than just a voice. As chair of Manganese Metal Company, is leading South Africa's charge into the EV battery game, producing high-purity manganese sulfate monohydrate, one of the most critical minerals in the world today. From building Harmony Gold into a powerhouse to mentoring industry leaders and running comrades for fun, Bernard is the real deal, an unassuming force who's reshaped South African mining. Welcome to Mining 901, Africa's largest mining-focused YouTube channel. Mr. Bernard Swanepoel, welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you, and good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Great. Welcome again to Mining 901, and thank you for making the time. I thought the best way to start the conversation would be just to reflect on the career that you've had. You've had a remarkable career, including significant leadership roles in the mining industry. What initially drew you to mining, and what continues to inspire your engagement with the sector today?
Thank you. I grew up in Rustenburg, which even then, 50 years ago, was a mining town. I wanted to study industrial engineering. I couldn't get a bursary. But in those days, there were lots of mining engineering bursaries as long as you were male and white. I ticked those two boxes. So I got a mining engineering bursary. That's what drew me to the mining industry, literally. Wasn't my first choice. And clearly, I wasn't the mining industry's first choice either. But interesting love affair did start there. I've never regretted joining the mining industry. The bursary came from Union Corporation. Today, that would be the Rustenburg Implats Mines. I never went back there until many, many years later as a director of Implat. I got allocated to the gold mining side of the company, and I grew up in gold mines, marginal gold mines, struggling gold mines, and that defined my career. I ended up working later for Gencor, which was the name of the company by then. And when I was at Beatrix as the general manager, Harmony asked me to join them as the managing director, CEO. That was in the early 90s. I ran Harmony for 12 years with an extremely competent team. And most people probably associate my name with that of the CEO or ex-CEO of Harmony. But that's some 18 years ago. Since then, I stir trouble in the industry, as you say. Thank you for calling it a sense of humor or wit. Some people just call it sarcasm. But I'm having great fun facilitating honest conversations, blunt conversations. And the conversation we're about to have about the platinum industry will be no different.
Yeah, I mean, the platinum industry as a whole it's a very interesting space. I find that PGMs or the complexity around PGMs, so at least part of it relates to the multi-purpose nature of PGMs. From your experience, what fundamentally drives the success of platinum group metals, the sector as a whole, and what do you believe are the unique challenges that it currently faces?
It is indeed a basket of metals. And I think in there lies the threat and the opportunity. You do not get to mine palladium only, although Norals to some extent mine it as a significant byproduct. You mine a basket of products. And so you're really exposed to 6, 7, or 8 different commodity cycles, and that forms your basket price. And of course, the currency comes into it. But the opportunity in that lies that when palladium is under threat or no longer sought after, platinum may still be fine, or rhodium can bail you out. So the opportunity and the threat goes hand in hand. It is a industrial metal, first and foremost, seriously tied to the internal combustion engine space. But the threat of electric vehicles and electrification creates opportunities for platinum, especially in hydrogen. Underpinning a lot of this is other industrial uses where platinum and or PGMs and its unique characteristics will always have a competitive advantage. And then, of course, I think on Thursday we're going to hear that the jewelry industry is actually the unsung hero of platinum right now. It's a very good growing or recovering space. So on Thursday, we're going to unpack platinum as separate from palladium, as separate from rhodium. But we're also going to talk about, but what does that mean for the companies? Because when you mine the Marinsky Reef, you've got a basket of these metals that you cannot change. So it makes for a very interesting, definitely a lot more complicated than the gold mining industry where I grew up, where as long as you could mine gold profitably, you could sell it, and it was a simple game. The platinum industry is much further vertically integrated and actually has got direct contact with their customers out of necessity.
I can only really agree. And as you were talking, I was thinking about both the competitive and comparative advantage that South Africa and broadly speaking, Southern Africa has when it comes to PGMs. But over the last, say, 5, maybe to 7 years, there's been a deep conversation around sustainability and ESG, particularly when it comes to ESG and its role in the mining sector. Last year, we started seeing some industry leaders saying that the ESG party is dead, which is an interesting view to take. In your mind, what are some of the sustainability and ESG considerations that you believe are reshaping the PGM industry? And maybe added to that is, what sort of strategic shifts do mining companies need to make to ensure that they remain resilient? If you can maybe just first touch on the ESG and sustainability aspects of that.
That is such a complicated or complex topic, but let me give a sort of a synopsis or simplified answer. I think a mining company who walks away from ESG because the political climate, say in North America, has changed, was never serious about it. I think shareholders should crucify such a company and such an executive. If you were only doing ESG because it was legally imposed, you were never serious about it. So, first point, I think most, and certainly the South African mining companies and certainly the PGM companies I'm exposed to, are as convinced that ESG is the future as we were before. The political fads and changes notwithstanding. Then, if we talk about platinum and PGM's role in an economy as a catalyst, it is almost always on the right side of making a better world. It helps to achieve energy efficiency, it helps to achieve processes more efficiently. Platinum and PGMs itself is as a precious metals, a group of metals. It lends itself to recycling. So it's part of a circular economy. Platinum doesn't get destroyed. Palladium doesn't get destroyed. It doesn't get consumed. And therefore, you need to mine less and less to supply the future demands of the world. That fits perfectly into circular economy as sustainability. Obviously, the footprint of mining and the ESG or environmental impact of that is extremely relevant. There are arguments about whether underground mining is less impactful from an environmental point of view. Some of the world's greatest deposits are currently being open pit mined, Mogalakwena, and of course, a lot of the mining of Norilsk. So at mine level, there's an impact that needs to be appreciated and managed. The product obviously feeds into the narrative of a greener future, both in terms of the future uses of the metal, but also remember, the fantastic story of PGMs was that it made the exhaust fumes of cars less harmful for nature. So platinum and PGMs have always been on the right side of the green conversation. I don't think that's about to change, quite honestly.
You touched on the issue of circularity. I forgot the reference, but I saw somewhere that uh, over 25% of the critical minerals that the world needs can be extracted through circular economy principles, through urban mining specifically. And I thought, wow, the world needs as many critical minerals as possible. if it is indeed true that you can get over 25% through urban mining, why are most businesses not engaged in this circularity thing? And I think part of the reason in my mind is because we still think of it as an environmental issue, and in the process maybe miss some of the opportunities. Mr. Swanepoel, there's the PGM Industry Day that's coming up, as you've alluded to, on Thursday. Reflecting on your discussions at events such as these, what do you believe are maybe some of the key catalysts that will drive future growth and innovation within the PGM's world?
We will unpack that with real experts on Thursday. But as I prepare and reflect on it, I think we're going to have this conversation in the different buckets. The palladium story is not a bully story. Palladium's current challenges and oversupply situation may be around for a couple of years. Palladium obviously is part of the South African mining sort of basket of metals, but then palladium is almost free to produce byproduct of Norilsk, the nickel mine, the phenomenal ore body in Russia. So palladium has got an oversupply challenge, and obviously palladium is mostly affected by the transition from internal combustion engines to battery electric vehicles and hybrids. Platinum, I sense we're going to hear very bullish conversations around that. I see that Anglo American Platinum, soon to be named Volterra, is talking very bullish about the supply demand dynamics for platinum. Platinum, I think over half of platinum consumption is true industrial uses and jewelry, and all of those seems to be in a healthy sort of place. Rhodium is such a thin market. It is not big, but it is very spicy. It's like the chili you add to your dish. From time to time, it drives the revenue of mining companies, but mostly it is a small contributor because of the low percentage of metal that comes out when you mine your basket of. Obviously, the key thing is the narrative is definitely changing from we are closer to the bottom than what we are or would have heard last year. Prices have mostly stabilized. And I do think the companies are talking about how do they position for the future. On the one hand, it feels like investors want to hear about big shutdowns, retrenchments, cutbacks. On the other hand, the industry says, but we were responsible. We haven't overcapitalized. We aren't mining ounces at a loss. And therefore, we're actually in good shape. And for me, what will be interesting is to see which of those two narratives are the most compelling. Now, each company builds their own story, obviously, but I think we're going to hear some real growth stories. We're going to hear about projects and junior mining companies really contemplating to bring new ounces on in 5 and 10 and 15 years. It's going to be a very interesting set of presentations about the growth prospects for this industry.
And with the ongoing debates around battery electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles, how do you see the role of PGMs evolving in the global shift towards cleaner mobility?
I do think it's one of those shifts that is unstoppable. Obviously, as a inhabitant of this planet, I want the planet to be sustainable. So to me, the hype around it was going to happen overnight only played out in China. But China was always a unique and specific case. The rest of the world, I don't think was ever going to transition as fast as some of the doomsday scenarios of 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think the realization that your hybrid vehicles as a stepping stone is a very good one, because a hybrid vehicle can be very green, but it also brings some of the advantages of the more traditional technology, and that continues to consume the PGM group metals. In parallel, of course, future new energy sources and especially storage opens up conversations around other critical minerals, but especially for platinum, the hydrogen conversation is is an important one. This is a typical thing of in the short term, we always overestimate the impact of something new, and in the long term, we underestimate it. I think this is exactly what is playing out. We were overestimating, hyped up, you know, the end of the platinum industry, it's the new sunset industry. Reality is no, that's not true. Longer term, of course, PGMs needs to reposition itself to play the role that the world is looking for it to play as a unique. I mean, the unique characteristics is unarguable. I mean, it does things that no other metal can do.
Hmm. No, thank you. I'm really looking forward to the conversations on the third. And maybe for those who are on the fence on whether to register or not, I'm sure you'll agree with me that you really don't want to miss a conversation on. It's a bigger conversation than really just PGMs. It's a conversation on the green transition, but it's also a conversation on the future of the mining sector, both locally but also on a global scale. Mr. Swanepoel, maybe let's switch a bit away from the PGM conversation and come back to sort of yourself. Having led major mining organizations, what key lessons have you learned about successfully navigating complexity and uncertainty in mining, which I'm sure it's the name of the game every day? I'm curious to maybe hear from you what the lessons that you've drawn have been in your time in mining.
I'm so glad I'm not a CEO today, not even for the spectacular salary packages, because the world is truly complex. And I think the role of a leader is to distill a strategy that gives hope, one that the investors can support because I think there will be value creation in a sustainable way. But my interest has always been trying to get the 50,000 people that work for the company to have hope that we are part of something that makes the world a better place. Um, but you cannot formulate a strategy and then die, whilst the world around you changes and you don't adjust. So this brings the concept of flexibility into play. I think the sort of MBA speak would be agility. You must be agile, so you must be clear on where am I taking this team of people, the company, but you must also be prepared. But nobody foresaw that the current Trump regime would be quite as aggressive as they are in terms of tariffs. What does this mean? How do we adjust? And that's my point. So, yes, in platinum, in PGMs, there's a beautiful potential future. We are proud of being associated with mining, but the world has changed, and what does that mean, and how can we as a company be agile? I think if the leader of the team at a mining company gets that right, then perhaps she deserves the salary we paid him, because it is the distilling all those complex things, connecting the dots, make it make sense to the people that invest in the company, work for the company. That is, to me, has always been the interesting part of corporate leadership.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly, I can really only agree with your sentiment. It's always interesting that with each passing year, it always feels like the world becomes more complex, which is interesting because even 300 years ago, if you ask those who were in charge, they were dealing with their own version of complexity. But obviously, the things that we need to juggle today are a lot more. The conferences that you host, including the one that is coming up now, for me, I look at it as you showing the way from a collaboration point of view to say the problems that the sector faces can only be solved through collaboration. In your view, Bernard, how crucial is collaboration across the mining ecosystem? And I'm including your investors, producers, communities. How crucial are all of those things from a collaboration point of view when it comes to sustainable long-term success of the sector?
Yeah, if you put that as a statement, not a question, I would just have said, I totally agree. I think it is absolutely crucial, 100% crucial. Your social license to operate is very complex if you get it wrong. It can be very simple. If you are extracting a natural resource And you unashamedly do that to the benefit of all stakeholders, the country at large, through taxes, through employment, the local community. I think that collaboration then is what makes mining, like it has been in the past from time to time, the underpin of an economy, the underpin of a phase of economic growth. I'm a beneficiary of mining. I got a bursary, I got an opportunity. My family will forever be better off because of opportunity presented to me, as a specific example. Surely that is part and parcel of the overall collaboration. Where we find ourselves as a world, I cannot comment on. As a country, we need to address those social issues of our country through proper job creation for young people. The mining industry is a perfect opportunity for that. There is no other industry that can create more technically skilled people with real career paths and job opportunities, in my mind, than the mining industry. And I know other people will smirk and say, yeah, we all need to be in banking, but quite frankly, banking without mining, I'm not sure what you will be banking. So I unashamedly believe that we need to be the underpin of the economic growth. For that to work, we need to um, embrace the concepts of reindustrialization of our economy. We don't have to do it the way the US is going about it, but we have to do it. We have to embrace the challenges of localization. We must create an environment where South Africans can make stuff better and cheaper than China. Otherwise, we give up before we've started to accept the challenges. But none of this can be done at individual level. No company on its own can do this. There is so much scope for better collaboration just between companies. Our platinum industry can collaborate without colluding at a level where we can actually change the way the world thinks about PGMs and demand and supply. So you talk to a man who truly believes that 1 + 1 is 10 times more than 2 if we collaborate properly.
In your 2020, 2021, I was amazed at the collaboration that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. Suddenly, companies were working together to solve this global problem. And you would have hoped that post COVID-19, you will see that level of collaboration. But it seems we do need a crisis, a big crisis for us to really properly collaborate. Maybe the last question is, as you look to the future, what's your personal vision for the PGM sector? And what advice, if any, would you offer emerging leaders today who maybe have aspirations to shape mining's next chapter and maybe specifically the PGM's next chapter? What's your view? What's your vision? And what's the advice you would give?
So my personal vision would be to not get caught up in the next sunset industry narrative. It is not true. Our ore body is not mined out at a national level. We are endowed with the best PGMs in the world, and we should live up to that. So I think the vision has to be, how do we weather the current storm? How do we adjust to these geopolitical side swipes? How do we promote the metals we mine to make it an integral part of the future? Because the future needs mining, a lot more mining. It needs primary mining to top up the recirculation part of it, the circular part of the economy. And it needs extremely responsible mining of metals that makes a contribution to a greener future. Now, platinum ticks all of those boxes. So I would love the next generation of leaders to be bold and to be visionary and to dream big and to think of PGMs as a Southern African thing. Because remember, between us and Zimbabwe, we may be two countries, but we are one platinum industry. And I think in there should be excitement for 30-year-old future leaders of the industry.